The Nivelle Offensive in 1917 was a Franco-British offensive on the Western Front in the First World War. The French part of the offensive was intended to be strategically decisive by breaking through the German defences on the Aisne within 48 hours, with casualties expected to be around 10,000 men. A preliminary attack was to be made by the French Third Army at Saint-Quentin and the British First, Third and Fifth Armies at Arras, to capture high ground and divert German reserves from the French fronts on the Aisne and in Champagne. The main offensive was to be delivered by the French on the Chemin des Dames Ridge, with a subsidiary attack by the Fourth Army. The final stage of the offensive was to follow the meeting of the British and French armies, having broken through the German lines, with a pursuit of the defeated German armies towards the German frontier. The Franco-British attacks were tactically successful. The French Third Army in Groupe d'Armes du Nord captured the German defences west of the Hindenburg Line near Saint-Quentin in attacks from 1 to 4 April, before further attacks were repulsed. The British Third and First Armies achieved the deepest advance since trench warfare began, in an offensive along the Scarpe River in the Battle of Arras, which inflicted many losses on the Germans. It attracted reserves and captured Vimy Ridge to the north. The main French offensive on the Aisne began on the 16th of April and also achieved considerable tactical success. The attempt to force a strategically decisive battle on the Germans was a failure, and by the 25th of April the main offensive was suspended. The collapse of the Nivelle strategy and the high number of French casualties led to mutinies and the dismissal of Nivelle, his replacement by Pétain, and the adoption of a defensive strategy while the French army recuperated. Fighting known as the Battle of the Observatories continued for local advantage all summer on the Chemin des Dames and along the Moronvillers heights east of Reims. In late October the French conducted a limited objective attack on the west end of the Chemin des Dames in the Battle of La Malmaison, which forced the Germans to retire across the Ailette Valley. Background: strategic developments. Robert Nivelle replaced Joseph Joffre as French commander-in-chief in December 1916. After the costly fighting at Verdun and the Somme, Nivelle claimed that a massive barrage on German lines would bring French victory in 48 hours. The plan was put into action on 16 April 1917 after support from France's Prime Minister, despite the doubts of other politicians, Pétain, Michelet, other senior army commanders and the British. The Nivelle offensive was a huge and costly undertaking, involving 1.2 million troops and 7,000 artillery pieces on a front between Reims and Roye. The principal effort was an attack on the German positions along the Chemin des Dames Ridge, in the Second Battle of the Aisne, and an eventual link with other Allied forces. From the start, the plan, which had been in development since December 1916, was plagued by delays and information leaks. By April 1917, the plans were well known to the German army, which made extensive defensive preparations. Prelude: Franco-British offensive preparations. Nivelle left Pétain in command of Groupe d'Armes de Centre and established a new Groupe d'Armes de Reserve, under General Michelet, for the attack along the Chemin des Dames, with the Fifth Army under General O. Mazel, the Sixth Army of General C. Mangan, and the 10th Army commanded by General D. Duchesne. 49 infantry and 5 cavalry divisions were massed on the Aisne front with 5,300 guns. The ground at Brimont began to rise to the west towards Craonne, and then reached a height of 180 meters along a plateau which continued westwards to Fort Malmaison. The French held a bridgehead 20 km wide on the north bank of the Aisne, south of the Chemin des Dames, from Berry-au-Bac to Fort Condé on the road to Soissons. German defensive preparations. German air reconnaissance was possible close to the front, although longer-range sorties were impossible to protect, because of the greater number of Allied aircraft. The qualitative superiority of German fighters enabled German air observers on short-range sorties to detect British preparations for an attack on both sides of the Scarpa. Accommodation for 150,000 men was identified in reconnaissance photographs. On the 6th of April, a division was seen encamped near Arras. Troop and transport columns crowded the streets. More narrow-gauge railways and artillery were seen to have moved closer to the front. British aerial activity opposite the 6th Army greatly increased, and by the 6th of April Ludendorff was certain that an attack was imminent. By early April, German air reinforcements had arrived at the Arras front. Telephone networks had been completed and a common communications system for the air and ground forces built. On the Aisne front, German intelligence had warned that an attack on the 15th of April against German airfields and observation balloons by the Aéronautique Militaire was planned. The Luftstreitkräfte arranged to meet the attack, but it was cancelled. Dawn reconnaissances had been ordered to scrutinize French preparations and gave the first warning of attack on the 16th of April. German artillery observation aircraft crews were able to range guns on terrain features, areas and targets before the offensive began, so that the positions of the heaviest French guns, advanced batteries and areas not under French bombardment could be reported quickly, along with the accuracy of German return fire. Ground communication with the German artillery was made more reliable by running telephone lines along steep slopes and deep valleys which were relatively free of French artillery fire. Wireless control stations had been set up during the winter to link aircraft to the guns. Battle. St. Quentin Arras. Groupe d'Armes du Nord. On the northern flank of Groupe d'Armes de Reserve had been reduced to one army with 3 corps and began French operations with preliminary attacks by the Third Army on German observation points at St. Quentin on 1–4, 10 and the 13th of April, which took some of the German defences in front of the Siegfriedstellung in preliminary operations. The main attack on the 13th of April made very little progress against a German defense relying mainly on machine gun fire and local counter-attacks. On the 9th of April, the British Third Army attacked to the east of Arras from Croisier to Écurie, against Observation Ridge, north of the Arras-Cambrai road, and then towards Fuchy and the German 2nd and 3rd lines. To the south of the road, the initial objective was Devil's Wood to Tilloy-les-Mouflaines and Bois des Buffs, with a final objective of the Montregal between Wancourt and Fuchy. The Third Army attack on the German defences either side of the Scarpa River penetrated 6,000 yards. The furthest advance achieved since the beginning of trench warfare. Most of the objectives had been reached by the evening of the 10th of April, except for the line between Wancourt and Fuchy around Neuville-Vitasse. The village fell that day, although the German garrisons in some parts of Montregal held out for several more days. The Third Army consolidated and then advanced on Monchy-le-Preux. To the north, the First Army attacked from Écurie north of the Scarpa to Vimy Ridge. The crest of the ridge was captured at about 1 p.m., in an advance which penetrated about 4,000 yards during the day. German reserves had been held too far back from the front and did not begin to reach the battlefield until the evening, when they were able only to reinforce the survivors of the front defences in improvised positions. The British engaged in several general attacks and limited attacks, which took more ground but became increasingly costly, against a German defence which recovered from the defeats of the 9th of April and organised reverse-slope defences, which were much easier to hold. By the 16th of May, the British had made significant advances and captured 254 German guns but had been unable to achieve a breakthrough. New tactics had been used, particularly in the first phase, and had demonstrated that set-piece assaults against elaborately fortified positions could be successful. Chemin des Dames. The Fifth Army attacked on the 16th of April at 6 a.m., which dawned misty and overcast. From the beginning, German machine gunners were able to engage the French infantry and inflict many casualties, although German artillery fire was far less destructive. Courcy on the right flank was captured, but the advance was stopped at the Aisne-Marne Canal. The canal was crossed further north and Bermericourt was captured against a determined German defense. From Bermericourt to the Aisne the French attack was repulsed, and south of the river French infantry were forced back to their start line. On the north bank of the Aisne the French attack was more successful. The 42nd and 69th Divisions reached the German second position between the Aisne and the Miette, the advance north of Berry penetrating 2.5 miles. The attack on the right flank of the Sixth Army, which faced north between Olchez and Missy, took place from Olchez to Soupir and had less success than the Fifth Army. The 2nd Colonial Corps advanced for 0.5 mile in the first 30 minutes, and was then stopped. The 20th Corps attack from Vendresa to the Wassagne Canal had more success. The 153rd Division on the right flank reached the Chemin des Dames south of Courtecan after a second attack, managing an advance of 1.25 miles. The 6th Corps advanced on its right flank west of the Wassagne Canal but was held up on the left. On the northern flank, which faced east near Lafo, 1st Colonial Corps was able to penetrate only a few hundred yards into the defences of the Condé Regal. To the east of Arc-Salon at the north end of the 6th Army, Mont des Singes was captured with the help of British heavy artillery but then lost to a German counter-attack. The 6th Army operations took c. 3,500 prisoners, but no breakthrough had been achieved, and at only one point had the German second position been reached. On the second day Nivelle ordered the 5th Army to attack northeastwards to reinforce success, believing that the Germans intended to hold the ground in front of the 6th Army. The 5th Army was not able substantially to advance on the 17th of April, but the 6th Army, which had continued to attack overnight, forced a German withdrawal from the area of Bray-Condé-Lafo to the Siegfriedstellung, which ran from Lafo Mill to the Chemin des Dames and joined the original defences at Courtecan. The German retirement was carried out urgently and many guns were left behind, along with vast stocks of munitions. The French infantry reached the new German positions with an advance of 4 miles. Nivelle ordered the 10th Army forward between the 5th and 6th Armies on the 21st of April, and local operations were continued on the fronts of the 4th and 5th Armies with little success. On 4 to 5 May Brimont was to be captured, which would have been of great tactical value to the French. The attack was postponed on the orders of the French government and never took place. The 10th Army captured the California Plateau on the Chemin des Dames, and the 6th Army captured the Siegfriedstellung for 2.5 miles along the Chemin des Dames and advanced to the salient opposite Lafo. By the end of the 5th of May, the 6th Army had reached the outskirts of Alamant and taken c. 4,000 prisoners. By the 10th of May, 28,500 prisoners and 187 guns had been taken by the French armies. Champagne. On the 17th of April, the 4th Army on the left of Groupe d'Armes de Centre began the subsidiary attack in Champagne from Auberive to the east of Reims, which became known as Bataille des Monts, with the 8th, 17th and 12th Corps on an 11-kilometer front. The attack began at 4:45 a.m. in cold rain alternating with snow showers. The right flank guard to the east of Suippes was established by the 24th Division and Auberive on the east bank of the river, and the 34th Division took Montcornillet and Montblond. The Monts were held against a German counter-attack on the 19th of April by the 5th, 6th and the 23rd Division and one regiment between Norroy and Moronvilliers. On the west bank, the Moroccan division was repulsed on the right and captured Mont-Saint-Nom on the left. To the northeast of the hill the advance reached a depth of 1.5 miles, and next day the advance was pressed beyond Montaut and Montcornet was captured on the 5th of May. The 4th Army attacks took 3,550 prisoners and 27 guns. German attacks on the 27th of May had temporary success before French counter-attacks recaptured the ground around Montaut. Lack of troops had forced the Germans into piecemeal attacks instead of a simultaneous attack along all of the front.